Hey troops, my name's Elias, aka Big Fat Socialist, and this is Breaking Immersia, a companion to my D&D series The Immersion Breakers, where I'll be answering lore questions and fleshing out the setting in advance of the first Immersion Breakers actual plays. But in this first episode, we're going to talk about the series itself, its inception, and how it relates to who I am as a storyteller, role player, and world builder. The Immersion Breakers is my longest continuing storytelling project, and it all started from a single D&D skit making fun of high fantasy and metagaming. It has not, nor has it ever been about a campaign I've actually been a part of, but then somehow someone requested part 2. 70 plus episodes later, and the literal placards I stapled together to act as joke fodder have become fleshed out characters in a complex, if not utterly absurd game world featuring several of my own role-playing characters as its historic figures. I didn't even introduce any proper nouns or names for any characters in the Immersion Breakers until I introduced another creator's character, Inna, the conception of the wonderful Sanguine Dreads. I didn't have ideas in my head for what these characters looked like, and when I was scripting, I typically used gender-neutral language because it didn't really feel applicable to a lot of the jokes I was writing, and it meant that when people requested clips for their own videos or animatics, it would appeal to a wider audience. But now as I look to use this wonderful studio space that I've made to run and record games, I feel that that needs to change, and as I try to codify this whole playlist of nonsense into a coherent game world that my fans want materials for, I've realized that a lot of what I've been trying to do in this joke setting is answer some of the big questions that I wrestle with as a fantasy lover, a storyteller, and a world builder. What makes fantasy fantasy? When should we ground our stories in history and realism, and when should we ignore those things entirely? Should fantasy be full of grit and adversity for players to overcome, or should it be full of wonder and romantic aspiration? My answers seem to be that fantasy is the fantastic, and its moments of awe, triumph, grandeur, and utter absurdity. And there is very much a lot in real-world history to draw inspiration from, much of which in my opinion has been overlooked, and still more of which has been looked upon entirely too much. But as far as adversity in examining real-world struggle, for my player characters, absolutely. But as a GM and player, I have ruined one too many game nights by dropping something on a player that they simply were not prepared for. Lessons learned, so now I employ safety tools, run session zeros, and operate on a policy of we don't need to explore a topic unless you and the other player specifically ask for it. Now, there are definite nods in Immersion Breakers to real-world history and my own politics that I've established in the series, like nobles abusing peasant folk, witless clergy, smite-happy paladins, orange-eating merchants floating stock market schemes, and 4 canonical fantasy labor unions. I very much want and expect the setting to get crazier. In fact, my supporters are allowed to mess with the fabric of the game world in special and unique ways on a monthly basis. But I want to leave the bulk of the room to my future players, whoever they may be, because my dream is to recreate something very similar to my formative years of roleplay. Playing one-shots with pals in an absolutely whack game setting with a rotating cast of characters who start taking quests and wind up quest givers, or dead, or both. I hope you'll join me for more, and thanks for sticking around. Special thanks to my Mythic and Sandwich tier patrons Dugrin and Griffin Provenzano for help keeping the shed up and running. And an extra special thank you to my early backers Ryan Henderson, Winterslade, D Sparrow, Dugrin, Watchful Spirit, Harrison Pollen, Gunnar, Computer Coder, Patchwork Wizard, Zeb Pickering Polstra, William Ferrari, Isaac Davies, Sashot Mack, Andrew Davis, Lemon Planter, Sora Mayura Yukino, Displacer Cat Shi, Zynorax, Gabriel Shepard, Harry 1863, Anthony Williams, Kay Burnett, Peter Allen, Michael Douglas, Jordan S., Aaron Grover, Wanna Trip Baby, Damian Lane, Carl Lilia, Righteous Steak, Thomas O'Neill, Joshua Smith, Jenny Size, Matthew, and Evan Haggard. Cheers for sticking around to the end, and thanks so much for all of your love and support.